When I say the car wasn't there, I mean I can put my hand on the notebook where we wrote everything down, the times, the temperature, what we wore in case someone later tried to call us liars. And the red car does not appear anywhere on those pages. On the video though, the Challenger sits at the far edge of the wide shot, so matter-of-factly, you can hear the heat ticking the way engines tick when they've just been shut off. If I turn the volume up on my phone and hold it to my ear, I can even hear what sounds like someone shifting in the driver's seat and clearing their throat. But I don't remember the car when I was standing there. I only remember the smell of cut grass and warm tar, a swallow's high, thin cry, the slack face of the building, and the blank eye of the broken window. We were stupid. That's the easiest version. We were 14 and thought we could outthink the parts of the world that were older than our bones. I can call it urbex now, like it was a hobby, a sport with rules. But the truth is, we just got off on trespassing into rooms that had been emptied of purpose. A place that used to mean something, turning into a mouth. That's what gets you. You feel as if you walk inside and don't choke. The mouth wants you there. The temple didn't look like a temple. The letters had been peeled from the sign, and you could still see their pale ghosts on the metal. Low concrete building, flat roof that sloped just enough to dump rain in an ugly arc, glass doors frog-eyed with bubble tint. The lot around it was a pan, hard and shallow, with the storm drains at the far corners, so when it rained, the place looked like it was floating. The back faced a strip of saplings and then a bigger building beyond, and the sound that first night came from somewhere back there, behind the far wall. Human, a girl, knife-bright and wet with breath. You think you know the difference between an absolute scream and a fake one. You think that until you hear someone choose to spend the last of their air on a sound. About the grey SUV, it was there the first night, engine off, windows up. The man inside had blonde hair that the streetlight turned into a shade of straw. He wore glasses that reflected a small square image. He stared at my friend, not at me. That's the part I keep revisiting like a loose tooth. He looked at my friend the way you look at someone you think you recognize from a distance, only to realize you don't. He didn't move. He didn't even pretend to be bored. We moved around him, pretending we hadn't seen him, and then the scream came. We ran, and later we said the man was either a druggie or someone who'd received bad news and needed a parking lot to sit in until he could gather his thoughts. I didn't film that first night. I brought the camera and then forgot why I had hands. Back at my place, my friend fell asleep on the floor with his shoes on and a bottle of water tucked under his neck like a saint with a relic. And I fell asleep staring at the blinds because the slats were flashing white, dark white like a heartbeat. I woke up with the word back in my throat, the way you sometimes half swallow something before you catch yourself, and the fear is you won't get it back out. The next time, I went alone in the afternoon. That was my deal with myself. The afternoons were pure. The afternoons were math class, sunlight, and grocery store hum, and the squeak of a shopping cart that skips every fifth tile. Afternoons were not the weather of screams. I parked 2 blocks away and walked with the camera looped around my neck, so if anyone asked, I could say I was just a kid taking pictures for art class. The sky had that brassy, hard feeling where the sun doesn't look hot, but everything is sweating. The temple sat in it like a grey scab. I filmed the outside. I filmed the curve of the lot, the weeds in the seam where the asphalt met the building, and the front doors with the bubbled tint. I filmed the long window on the west side where the tint had peeled back in an L-shaped snarl, and I filmed the broken square pane near the bottom where someone had knocked out a piece and then leaned the glass shard back against the hole like a tooth. I filmed the back too, from the fence line. Trash huddled at the corners, the vapid face of the utility door, a light that was on inside even though the place was dead. I thought, at least in the afternoon, the world is honest with me. I thought that's so hard I didn't notice I had already made a mistake. I hadn't looked past my camera to see what wasn't there. Later that night, I settled into a cozy spot, blinds drawn and the room dimmed, just like you do when you immerse yourself in a film you want to truly experience. In the very first minute of the footage, I spotted a striking red car parked near the far drain, positioned toward the building as if it were eavesdropping. Excitement coursed through me as I paused the video, zooming in eagerly until my thumb ached. It appeared to be a Challenger, that vibrant shade of red that almost dances on your taste buds, with a hood stripe faintly visible in the dust. No one was inside, and everything was still. Yet, the shadow cast along its rocker panel felt too pronounced, hinting someone was lingering just out of sight. Even with the sound turned down, I could sense the slight metallic sound of the car as if it were catching its breath. I rewound, wondering if I had overlooked something in the moment. But no, the car was already there as I approached and still there on my way back. Just as I turned to capture a final glimpse of the sign with its peeling letters, the car vanished. What a mysterious twist. I couldn't help but feel intrigued by it all. Not driven away and gone like I had imagined it to explain some other thing that didn't want explaining. I didn't want to text my friend because a weird thing is smaller if just one person looks at it. But I also didn't want to sleep with the blinds flashing questions at me again. I told myself it was a reflection of a billboard from the street behind me. I told myself there'd been a parade of red cars all my life that I'd never noticed, because the world doesn't owe you attention. We went back together the next day, early afternoon. The front window had been smashed since my last visit, the square pane knocked out and the shard that had been leaning there pitched inward, as if someone had reached through and pulled the room toward them. Someone was inside. I saw a shape move the way a breath moves. The shape turned, and it borrowed the light, and it was a person. All the soft names we have for person fell off me at once. Woman, man, worker, squatter, friend, and I ran. I didn't say we should run. I just left, and my friend shot after me with this sound in his throat like he had turned himself into a small engine that ran only on fear. We stopped at the nearest store and were the kind of boys convenience store clerks hate, because we stand and breathe and don't buy anything until our hands stop shaking. Then we purchased iced tea because it felt good to hold a cold, sweet treat. We went back anyway. That's the part I don't know how to defend. We told ourselves we were going to walk past, only past, to see if the figure was still there and maybe say something like, "We're sorry, sir," or "We didn't mean to disturb you, Mum." Because if you can name a thing and apologize to it, a part of the world becomes yours again. We were near the southeast corner when the banging started. It was the kind of sound you don't know the name for until you see the tool that makes it. I didn't know the tool then, only felt the pipe in the sound. a hollow bar against something twice, then a drag on concrete, then twice again, patient, as if measuring us. We didn't run that time. We walked like we were being graded on it, like if we didn't break stride, whatever had lifted the pipe would forget we had bodies. We turned the corner and didn't look back, because sometimes the only dignity you get is the dignity of not giving the thing your eyes. That night, at home, I watched the footage from the afternoon again. The red car had moved. It had moved without lifting a shadow. In one shot, it's near the far drain. In a later shot, it sits 2 spaces closer to the building. The front wheel had turned a few degrees toward the front door, like an ear. My friend said there was probably some lens warping he'd seen on YouTube videos about skate trick footage. I said yeah. Then I scrubbed back and forth until the sound did that slowed down groan and sped up squeal. And in one pass, I heard something in the background lift like a person saying, "Hey." When I scrubbed again to catch it, the sound was gone. The machine swallowed its own ghost. The night we brought masks is the night that keeps happening in my head right now, as I write this at 11:29. The screen making my window into a mirror. We weren't brave. We were greedy. The masks made us feel like men. That's what they were for. They were for not looking like ourselves and permitting our bodies to be used by a dumber kind of animal. We had cheap flashlights with rubber bands around them, so we could strap them to our wrists and still keep our hands free. We had the camera. We had a list in the notebook of rooms we thought we'd find: office, small sanctuary, storage, utility. And beside each word, we'd written a plan to be quiet. A light was on inside. It was on in the way lights are on in houses that haven't been lived in for a while. A little too steady, a little too patient. It was something like a flashlight, the beam low, pointed at the floor so the dust rose to meet it like smoke. We were at the west window with the peeled tint, and as I lifted the camera, the light flicked off. Not like it had burned out, like a finger had found a button. The switch in my hand found the same position. We walked. The air had that summer night taste like pennies and algae. The far lot was empty. The nearby lot was empty. The world was the kind of quiet that doesn't leave room for crickets. We did the thing we promised each other we'd do if the world felt wrong. We walked to the corner store and performed the ritual of being alive. Opened the cooler, cold air on the forearms, 2 bottles of tea, pay, the heaviest thank you we could make sound casual. The store smells remembered for me. Mop water, bread, spray cleaner, someone's too sweet floral deodorant. When we stepped back outside, the night bit the inside of my nose with the smell of hot brakes. We were going to cut behind the store and go home the long way, when my friend said we should pass the far side of the lot to make sure the light really was off. So we did, and the white car shot out from the back corner so fast the bumper bounced when it hit the curb cut. It wasn't even a second between the headlight glare and the emptiness. The car tore past, no plates visible, and took the corner on a cry of rubber like a mouth pulled wide. I couldn't tell if the driver had seen us or if we were just something the car peeled off the pavement. My friend said he knew they'd seen us. I nodded because it was one of those statements that you don't want to trap inside your friend's body alone. We didn't need to talk about what the white car meant. It meant the building was a lung and someone inside was breathing. It meant the scream that first night had lived somewhere in that lung, and the grey SUV had been a cough the building couldn't get rid of. And our cameras and our masks with toothbrushes in the wrong mouth. We went home anyway, stepping over the little flags stuck in the grass by city workers to mark underground wires, as if the city could map dangers that burrow. This is the part where the story picks itself up and shows you you're never done. I watched the footage from that night and found only the part where I raised the camera to the west window. The video begins where the light goes out. I remember lifting my arm. I remember seeing the cone of light and the dust glitter in it like sparkling rain. I remember my friend saying something under his breath. That was just breath. The clip is 4 seconds of darkness and the sound of my thumb brushing the strap, and then a small scrape of a shoe on grid. Then it ends. My gallery is a deck of cards, where the top one has been peeled away and glued elsewhere. When I scroll backward to the earlier afternoon footage, the red car sits in the same place, and then my phone freezes on a single frame and stays there like a held note. The frame is the front doors of the temple, and my reflection inside the glass pane. Only the reflection is wrong. My hair is shorter. I'm wearing glasses. I don't have glasses. The mouth behind the glass is open, as if it's speaking my name. And what bothers me isn't that he's me, it's that he's older. I told myself I was tired. I told myself the phone had built a collage from older selfies I didn't remember. I told myself all the comforting words about glitches and caches. I slept with the phone face down on the desk, and the window shades at that not quite closed angle where the room feels like a public space you've been locked inside after hours. Dreams were the kind you get when you've watched too many videos of things you can't have, running not away from anything, only running because there is a road and feet. We decided to stop. This is the part of a story where people usually say they decided to stop, and then they don't. We actually did. For a couple of days, it held. When the urge to circle the lot came up like a burp in the throat, I swallowed it. At school, my friend and I didn't talk about it where other people could hear. If we thought about the scream, we thought about it sideways, like a sun you never look at, but always feel on the edge of your eyes. None of this matters because stop is a verb that doesn't stick to time. It's a thing you do until you are doing a different thing, and the temple kept living behind the words we were using to be good. The next thing wasn't going back. The next thing was the banging. It didn't start at the temple. It began in my house. 2 thuds, then a drag, then 2 thuds. Not loud, like the person who owned the sound was testing the door to see if the noise would carry. My room is on the 2nd floor. There are no neighbors who share a wall. There's a maple tree near the window, but the leaves in summer only make their own kind of static. I lay there and listened to the 2 drag 2 and counted between the sets. Sometimes 20 seconds, sometimes as long as 2 minutes. After 40 minutes, the sound stopped and left the shape of itself behind, the way a heavy thing leaves a mark in the carpet. The next night, it happened again. When I sat up and turned on the lamp, the sound at first grew softer, like whoever owned it had leaned away. Then the 2 thuds came from farther inside the house, like someone moving from room to room. I thought about my mom asleep and the dog who sleeps like a person. I thought about my friend's window across town. I thought about the pipe. I didn't wake anyone. I didn't call. I just took out my phone and started recording the dark. That seems so stupid now, but it's the only thing that felt like action. We move the way we've taught our bodies to move. The video is 7 minutes of nearly black with a glow along the bottom, where the streetlight outside bleeds under the shade. In the second minute, the screen shifts as if something outside the frame is throwing light and then taking it away. A warm roll like headlights turning and then leaving. I listened later with the volume pressed into my ear and could swear there was a breath in the room that wasn't mine. A little pocket of air that gets taken and then given back in a rhythm that never quite meets your own. I told my friend about the banging, and he said he heard something too, but on his roof. Soft footfalls, then a knee, then a turn, as if someone who had done it a lot was trying to make the old wood say as little as possible. We met at the corner store in daylight, like our lives were an English class, and we could work this into sense. The clerk watched us the way grown-ups watch boys who don't buy a lot, but always show up wanting cold air and eye contact without responsibilities. I said I wasn't going back. He nodded too quickly. We didn't go back. The video kept editing itself in my pocket. That's what I started to believe. Clips were missing that I knew I had shot. New ones appeared. 3-second nothings of a dark wall and the sound of my own breath. The lilt of a radio in someone else's car. The shaved syllables of a newscaster reading a headline in a room I've never been in. That's when the scream started up again. Not out loud, in the audio, embedded like old stains under new paint. In one clip, if I isolate the highs, there's a strand in the sound that could be a girl or could be a hinge, but it's shaped like no. In another, the low end swells when the camera passes the back door, and if I loop it, you can almost hear a man say a single word so slowly, it takes all his air and gives him none back. Stay. My mom says I've been jumpy. She says I smell like outside all the time and asks if we've started running again. I say yes because running is one of the good lies, and my shoes have dirt on them that I don't remember earning. School becomes a soup of eyebrows. My friend walks in exact lines in the hall, as if the floor tiles are traps. We stop texting at night, and then I start again, because the phone is louder when no one answers it. About the grey SUV. I think about it all the time. Not the car, him. The first night, when he stared at my friend like they had history neither of them wanted, I thought he was a threat in the obvious way. The more I replay the way his head didn't turn when the scream rose, the more I think he had already been to the end of this and back. His face wasn't angry the way I remembered it. It was the face of someone who has had to walk into a room to take a bone from a dog and knows he will be bitten for it because the dog doesn't understand that the bone is poison. I am not saying I think the man was me. That would make the story small. I'm saying that when I saw the reflection in the front door, my reflection, but older, with glasses, with a mouth making a shape I knew would feel like my name in a different throat. I didn't feel the thrill you're supposed to feel when you think about time winking at you. I felt the tiredness that is bigger than my body. I felt like the temple was a machine for recording and replaying people, and I had stepped into the part that makes copies. The last time we went there, we had no plan. We were walking to prove we still could, and the road pulled us like a moving walkway you don't realize you're on until the scenery has changed. We were in full afternoon sun. The temple looked smaller, the way you sometimes drive by your old school and can't believe you ever fit a childhood inside. The west window's peeled tint had sagged lower so that the glass showed more of itself. A clear throat. The front window's broken square was the same. The shard that had been pitched inward lay on the carpet a foot from the hole, and a smear of dust made a fan where it had skidded. There's a thing that happens when you see evidence of motion and can't tell which way it points. It makes your brain ask question marks in a circle and feed itself its own tail. I reached my hand through the broken square without thinking. There was a desk just inside. The surface had a film of grit that had learned the shape of sunlight. On the far wall, a corkboard held the brown ends of staples where flyers had been pinned. The air smelled like paper and wet plaster. Then a slight sound came from deeper inside, a single knock like a knuckle on wood, and the dust in the room lifted as if someone had walked through. That's the precise sensation. Air disturbed by a body. The sound wasn't a threat. It was a notification. I pulled my hand back and left a ghost print on the glass. We walked along the west wall, past the long window with its peeled L of tint. The glare made the inside a picture of the outside, and we became figures moving in the glass. All at once, my reflection stopped and didn't. In the window, I kept walking. In the world, I stopped. The delay wasn't a trick of angles. My friend hissed my name and I looked at him. And in the window, he was still looking forward. The glass snapped back to us so hard I flinched, as if we had yanked a thread that had been holding something heavy. We kept moving. At the back corner, the pipe lay on the ground. That's the only way I can say it. There was an old metal conduit, maybe 3 feet long, ragged on one end where it had torn free. It lay at the base of the wall, like something had slid it there with the sole of a shoe. I touched it with my shoe, because I couldn't not, and the sound it made against the asphalt was the same sound from the other afternoon. 2 taps and a drag. My friend stepped away. There was a white smear on the pipe, like the kind of paint you use on parking lot lines. I put my toe into the curved end and lifted. The pipe felt warm, as if it had just been held. I didn't bring the pipe home. I didn't even carry it. I set it back down, and we moved away as if a sleeping animal had twitched. That night, the banging started earlier. 2 thuds, then a drag, then 2 thuds. And in between them, the street outside brightened and dimmed with the slow pass of a car you could feel but couldn't see. When I looked through the blinds, the glass held my reflection and then swallowed it. And in the not reflection, I thought I could see a red parked at the curb. It was a trick of the street lights. It was anything but a car. Something else bothered me. The way a seed husk stuck behind a molar bothers you until your tongue is tired. Every time I watched the footage of the afternoon with the Challenger in it, a different shadow fell across the car depending on where the camera stood. Not just the car's own shadow, the shadow of someone standing between the vehicle and the building. Only when I scrubbed frame by frame did I catch the shape of the shadow occupying a position that doesn't exist. There is no place you can stand in the real world to cast that particular parallelogram across that specific line of reflections. It is the geometry of a thing that lives on the glass. I told myself this was the part of the story where older people would say we needed to tell an adult. But if I'm honest, we did. The temple had older people built into it. The man in the grey SUV watching us the first night was an adult, and he did what adults do when they have been sanded down by time. He watched and did not act because the act he would have taken had already been taken in a moment we hadn't reached yet. He was the message and we didn't know the language. I won't tell you that we went inside. I'm not going to tell you we found a room with candles and pictures of girls with their eyes scratched out, or that we chased a white car to the highway and got the plate and called it in. None of that happened. In the afternoon, we touched the pipe with our shoes and then we left. We crossed the lot like we were walking across a face we didn't want to wake up. The doors of the corner store opened for us with their clean little sigh. The clerk nodded like he was proud of us for buying something instead of just breathing the air. We held cold sugar and the bottle sweated, and we smiled because we needed to prove to our own mouths we could make that shape. Now it's 11:29 and I keep hearing that engine tick like a stove cooling, and my phone says there's a new video in the gallery that I didn't take. The thumbnail is grey on grey, the way a throat looks from too close. When I tap it, the clip begins with a shimmer of dust in a low beam of light, the exact light the night it went out. I want to say the flashlight, but it's not a flashlight. It's light that behaves the way a flashlight would if a person weren't holding it. The frame tilts as if someone as tall as I am is shifting the phone in the same hands I have, and the beam falls across a broken square of glass. In the reflection, I am not wearing glasses. My hair is the length it is now. The glass shows me as I am, and behind that, deeper in the room where glass is not supposed to reflect, a pale shape leans forward like a face discovering a mirror. The sound is there too, 2 thuds and a drag, and then the thuds again, slow, as if rehearsed. I pause the clip with my thumb. My hands are sweating and the phone feels as if I'm holding a fish, and try to scrub back. The video jumps ahead. The frame is now the parking lot. The camera is low, at waist level, the way I hold it when I'm being careful. Far off at the corner, a white car's headlights swell and then slide away. No plates. The flare leaves an after image on the sensor like a fingertip on a closed eye. Somewhere between the car and the camera, someone moves, but in the way fog moves. A thinning, a thicker patch, a scent. My own voice says a word that could be my friend's name or could be mine. Then the clip stutters and ends. The following clip begins, although I haven't touched anything. It's the front doors of the temple again. The bubble tint, the reflection of the lot layered over the reflection of the inside. The camera creeps closer, and in the glass 2 faces bloom, one mine and one not. The not face wears glasses and has hair like straw under the streetlight, and the shape of his mouth, my mouth, makes something like my name but with the first letter lifted off and set aside, so it isn't a name anymore, only a sound you can hang a person on. Behind those faces, somewhere inside the building, a woman screams. The scream is both close and far, as if the glass conducts sound like a wire. My thumb jerks and the clip freezes on the open mouth, and that's how it stays, no matter what I do. I lock the phone, and the room comes back with the white, dark white of the blinds. Headlights move across the ceiling and pool in the corner. 2 thuds, then a drag, then 2 thuds come from the hall closer, as if someone is measuring out the length of a threshold before stepping over it. I think about the pipe lying at the back of the building, and I think about the way I lifted it with my toe, and I think about the warm metal, and I realize I have still not told you what color the pipe was under the dust, what color it is when someone uses it to talk to the floor. I keep that for myself because a story needs a thing it doesn't give away to prove it's alive. I am not going back. I am going to sit here with the window full of my own face until the clip unsticks itself and shows me something I can live with. I'm going to pretend the grey SUV was a man who had nothing to do with me. And I'm going to pretend the red car was a reflection. And I'm going to pretend the white car just needed a fast lane through a problem that had nothing to do with my body. I'm going to pretend the scream belonged to a night when nothing else happened, and that if I breathe quietly enough, the banging will stop, because the person who owns it doesn't want to waste the sound on someone who won't give it back. Or I will go to the window and look down, and the lot will be empty, and the street will be empty, and the glass will show me myself with a life waiting behind it like a room. And in that room, someone will tap twice and drag and tap twice, telling me I am here now, I am here, I am.